had just started my theology, and that was in 1966. And so I was really interested in how do we implement Vatican II. And one of my professors talked about a program in Chicago called the Urban Training Center. Saul Alinsky is well known as like the founder of organizing. He gave some of the workshops, and I was just really taken by his approach to working in the community. And I said, this is what the gospel is all about. This is because he talked about the importance of listening to people and empowering people. And so that experience, I left Chicago, that experience just changed my whole life, my thinking, my theology. Theology became alive for me. And so then came back here, being a Jesuit and being under the under a superior, wanted me, along with one of my colleagues, another Jesuit, Jerry Helfrich, to do something in what he was calling social ministry. And I said, well, what we know is community organizing. And so he gave the green light to do community organizing wherever we could get it set up. What happened, one of the Franciscan priests at St. Elizabeth's here in Oakland heard about the training that we had in Chicago, and that we were returning here, and he said, community organizing in Oakland he said, we need that. So those first few years was a building process. And then in 1978, we had a big convention. Governor Jerry Brown came as the keynote speaker. It was just a huge celebration that, this organization came about. Initially, it was a neighborhood model. And then in 1984, we transitioned into what we called a congregation-based community organization. And so that really expanded our work. Today, we're in 24 states here in the United States and 12 countries. What continually motivates me is being able to work closely with people and seeing what a difference it makes in people's lives and in the lives of families and the communities.
I started organizing in 1970 on the west side of Chicago, and at the time met Father John Bauman, who was organizing in the Pilsen neighborhood at the time. And I moved from Chicago to St. Paul, Minnesota, and fundamentally made a decision that I would like to be in a network that had greater aspirations than just local organizing efforts, as important as they can be. I wanted to be part of something where I could contribute to more meaningful impact than I had the opportunity to do in St. Paul. And so at the time, John and Ron Snyder and a bunch of very, very talented staff had begun organizing in Oakland. And it was coming together into what they had done as neighborhood organizing efforts, and what was coming together into a large organization called OCO was, and leaders there were looking to hire someone to kind of help lead the staff. So I was invited into that position in 1977 and have been in organizing ever since. 50 years later, 40 odd years later, what I really remember are the names of leaders. They were really teaching me kind of the craft of organizing. I was able to help both they and the staff kind of achieve the purposes that they had earmarked for themselves. People really began to feel the sense of their own power. We had a series of successes. We also had a series of of incomplete failures, if you will. And perhaps that's really the lesson of organizing, is that we are also architects of a future that is not our own, that folks from Oakland that were pioneers in the organizing passed that ball, moved the ball down the field and passed that on to others who've continued to grow the organizing effort. And really, OCO was kind of the birthplace of what became the PICO National Network. And that network expanded to, 50 organizations across the United States and some work globally. Pretty inspiring history that Oakland not just produced this sacred work of kind of building capacity, equipping people to really walk their faith, helping one another kind of build the kind of community and resilience that we certainly need going forward. But then it was a catalyst for efforts around the world.
I am most proud of having the privilege of working with incredible leaders in Oakland, community leaders who believed in their own power and exercised it and achieved amazing change over the course of the 40 or so years I was around. Well, I think the call to people of faith is to take that faith and put it into action, to be citizens of our country, our city, our state, and to raise their voice for justice and for equity for all people.
I enrolled at the Graduate Theological Union as a layperson to study systematic theology, where I had the good fortune of having Dr. Cummings as one of my thesis advisors. And then while I was at the Graduate Theological Union, a Jesuit friend of mine said, well, hey, you should go over and meet John Bauman. So I drove over to Oakland and I met Father John and learned about PICO. And I went over and met Ron at OCO. And because I was fluent in Spanish and because Stephanie Gut had just left what was then Oakland Community Organizations, I was hired and I started working for OCO half-time in 1987. Everything just sort of clicked. You could bring together community work, social action, a social justice lens, and kind of human development. Kind of all came together for me. And I really feel like one of the beauties of OCO and now Faith in Action East Bay is that it's been an institution in Oakland. And institutions are important. Institutions create traditions, they hold people together. They're not always perfect, they go through their struggles, they have their ups and downs. But having an institution that continues to be a place where people kind of enter through a door into public life, I just think that's super essential.
Faith in Action East Bay has always been about the people. It's always been about grassroots leaders growing their power, growing the power of the city of Oakland and beyond, and really taking agency, having agency over the things that matter most to them. That's the beauty of a Faith in Action East Bay, is you're not proud of your individual achievement, but the achievement of the entire community and the people. 10 years ago, there were all of these, much like now, competing ballot initiatives and parcel taxes, several of them that, OCO at the time, Faith in Action East Bay, were really the authors of. So Measure N for linked learning, college and career readiness. At the time, I think it was Measure Z, which was the renewal of Measure Y, which is now Measure NN, around violence prevention, community safety. We were doing Prop 47 at the state level, and there were 10 different initiatives that we were working on. We were getting a lot of heat from city officials and school district officials saying, we can't have all of these things on the ballot at the same time. People won't accept everything. One's going to lose. It's a trade-off, da-da-da. And we were in a meeting, well before, trying to get everything put together with an elected official, and she was giving us this line. And in the meeting, one of the leaders said, you know what, we're just going to tell people, don't guess, vote yes. We ran an entire campaign for like 5 months on don't guess, vote yes. And every single initiative we supported passed, like with an overwhelming majority. So I think about that, about like, it's easy to say no to things, and everybody else wanted to say no, and everybody wanted to say, wait your turn, or you do this now, or you do that, and leaders just knew. I think that's what's really unique about the organization, and the people who have served the organization. I think that the real trust in leaders goes back to John Bauman and Jerry Helfrich. You know, like, I got to hear lots of crazy stories about them riding their bikes around East Oakland and people thinking they were hippies and what are these guys doing out here, and, you know, all this stuff. But I think that that is in the DNA of the organization, that this is about grassroots leaders owning their community, owning their power, owning their agency, talking about what they want to solve and making it happen. And faith isn't as much of an inspiration for the work. Like faith is the reason for the work. The belief that everybody deserves dignity, every person has power, every community is righteous, not in a religious way, but righteous in the way of being in relationship with each other. Like, that is the foundation. My biggest hope for Faith in Action East Bay is more power. And in our organizing, that's more people. So a bigger base of grassroots leaders who are discovering their own power, who are engaging in political education, who are understanding how power works in Oakland and Alameda County and Contra Costa County, and saying, you know, we're going to put this power into action, our power, community power, and we're not going to get scared, and we're not going to be deterred by people or in positions that think differently. We're going to take these issues head on because we have power. We know we have power. We feel that we have power.
Yeah, so the overall call for Faith in Action East Bay that shaped my commitment to being the ED is the commitment to working with those people who are most impacted by public policy and are negatively impacted by those policies, and being able to lead an organization that brings about change based on what the people have to say, and help them to participate in defining not only the process of change, but also what the changes will be. When I came, there were 3 separate organizations, one in Contra Costa, one in South Alameda, and one in Oakland. And it was my responsibility to bring about a merger of those 3 organizations and to build them in such a way that they would have a common mission, a common understanding of what the concerns were as they would shape our organizing work, and then eventually to develop a common organizing strategy that everybody would agree to and we'd be able to work on. When I began, Faith in Action East Bay was one of 10 federations that made up Pico, California. And 4 years into the process, I joined with the leadership of Pico to develop a more coherent, cohesive, statewide organization that represented those federations in a different way. When I think about the vision of the future for Faith in Action East Bay, I think that it will be, I think about it in terms of an organization that represents a deep and profound commitment to the idea that we belong to each other. That is to say that Black people, white people, poor people, rich people, people of all faiths, people who are brown, all people are able to understand in a different way and in a more substantial way that there is no future without us being able to work together to achieve whatever that vision is.